Hello YouTube, it is me, Ryan, once again, PB70CDOEM, and I have decided to do a part 3 because, for one, what you all are seeing here is a scanner image of a Micro Firmware BIOS floppy disk that YouTube user RetroBits uploaded to archive.org, and I wanted to say thank you to him for uploading it. Even though it was not the right one for my particular Gateway 2000, I'm sure it will help other people down the line. Making this video here because I wanted to make some updates to anyone who does not have this disk, but does have a Micro Firmware BIOS on their Gateway 2000 system. The boot screen would look something like this. Also, thank you to YouTube user RetroBits for giving me permission to take a screenshot from your video, which I really enjoyed, by the way, of the CPU upgrade. I wanted to make some updates on a few things, by the way. Okay, so the first one I wanted to discuss is this is the BIOS example chart that I made and showed in my last video. Possible missing BIOS data if one of those update only files were decompiled. None of this is necessary anymore because I actually did a side-by-side comparison of the Micro Firmware BIOS update that RetroBits uploaded to archive.org and an update only version. In the update only versions, the entire BIOS is contained within the EXE, not just upgrade only data. The whole thing is in there. There is also something else that I wanted to mention too, in addition. Okay, what I have here, in addition to the install.exe files, are an install.inf file that actually go with the Micro Firmware BIOS updates. Now the non-update only version that RetroBits posted on archive.org, it actually has a serial number present, but the update only versions, it just says update. This also applies to the exe files as well, which I'm going to also show off as well. Okay, here's my example of the update only version. So here's where it says update, and then the non-update only version, it actually has a serial number in place of where update is on the other one. Now, this gave me an idea that I thought would work, but unfortunately didn't. Okay, now what I have opened up is an update only version of the exe Micro Firmware BIOS update of the Micro Firmware BIOS that I'm looking for my Gateway 2000 system board, which is, come on, focus. Okay, M4GS25. Now, I personally made up a serial number that Micro Firmware might have used, or not, I don't know. I just made up this particular serial number. Now in the hex editor, I'm going to replace update with that particular serial number, and I'm going to save it. Okay. Okay, now what I have open here is the install.exe through the hex editor and the install.inf file of an update-only version of the Micro Firmware BIOS that I am currently looking for. And what I actually did, paste, this is a serial number that I personally just made up. I don't know if Micro Firmware ever used that one. Maybe they did, I don't know for sure. I just made it up. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and save that and close out of that. Now I have update highlighted here. and we're going to paste. And then we're going to save that, and that's the modification I've made to the exe file as well. So now it's practically a non-update only version now. Now this quite did not work for me, and I'm going to demonstrate that in the next video clip. Okay, I am now on my Gateway 2000. What I have on this floppy disk here are the Micro Firmware update only version to non-only update version files that I have modified. Doing this on the keyboard with one hand is kind of tricky. So, dir. So, December 30th, 2025, that's today's date that I'm making this video. And I type in install. Okay. So it says gathering system information. Okay, now it's wanting to create a recovery disk, a proprietary format. So hold tight just one moment. Alright, I just had to grab another blank floppy disk, so we'll just took the other one out already. Okay. Now it's creating the recovery disk, which I am unfortunately going to have to use to restore the original BIOS, and I'm going to actually show off how that is actually done on my particular Gateway 2000 system board once this is done. Okay. Recovery, yep, alright. I actually do have another one, by the way, that I had created before, which is right here, and that's the original BIOS part number. Now it says press any key to continue. And now it's programming the new BIOS, which unfortunately is not going to work. We'll see momentarily. And it just hangs right there. See, half the characters of that number 16 are truncated a little bit. But if I press the reset button right here, I just get those very same beeps as I did just a few seconds ago, and no post. If I press the reset button again, same thing. Alrighty. So, because the modification I made to that exe did not work, and because the BIOS on my system is no good, what I have to do now is I have to switch this jumper over to the other side to put into BIOS recovery mode. Am I doing it correctly? Should be doing it correctly. There we go. Now I turn the system back on. And that lower pitch beep. And this is what comes up. Flash memory boot block. So the recovery disk that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to put that in. And we're going to press the letter Q for 3.5-inch floppy disk. and it's going to recover the BIOS. Flash memory is done. Okay. Power the system off once again. Eject the BIOS recovery disk. And put the jumper back into the original spot. Okay, did it quicker that time. Holding a camera in one hand and having the other hand being the only hand I have available makes this harder or just takes a bit more time. So, the original BIOS has been restored now. In conclusion, I could be wrong, but there's a remote possibility that the hex editor that I use to make the modifications to the EXE might be corrupting the EXE in some way. The reason I say I could be wrong is because it still ran on my Gateway 2000, as you saw in my last couple of video clips. The reason why I suspect the hex editor could be corrupting the EXE even just a little bit is because from another experience I've done over something else, I have DOSBox on my laptop computer here with a Windows 3.1 install. I made a temporary CD-ROM icon. I don't really have a CD-ROM program here. Properties. But this is just an icon that I wanted to that I've created because I wanted to demonstrate something for this video. It's pointing to a drive E, or I mean a drive D, but let's say the CD-ROM was changed to drive E. This was a different form of demonstration that I did a while back, and I had this issue once before. So here's the program group that I just mentioned. And I open that with the hex editor, do a drag and drop. Let's make it a bit bigger. Scroll back up a bit. And I wanted to change the letter D to letter E, which is also right here as well. Letter E. And then I save it. Close out of that. See, it makes a backup as well. Now, if I load DOSBox back up with the Windows 3.1 install in place, now it's corrupted. So I suspect, and again I could be wrong, I suspect that the hex editor might be corrupting the EXE. If it's not corrupting the EXE, and the Micro Firmware BIOS update is still failing, what I am suspecting, I will bring it up again. There's the original. There's the one I modified. At the very bottom is the BIOS update, or the BIOS data that the EXE writes to the BIOS. Because I don't know how any of this stuff works, certainly in a hex editor, there might be some code in here that needs to be modified. And I don't quite know how to do any of that, or what changes need to be made, or if I'm using the right kind of hex editor. I also wanted to point out that the BIOS update that Retrobits uploaded for his Gateway 2000 and the update only version. In the code here somewhere, I don't really want to take the time to look for it because we'll probably be here all day. Based off of where it says licensed for use on a single computer only, again there's a serial number I made up. This is a example replica that I made with Microsoft Paint, and this monitor image came from another system. Anyways, that bit of text is present on here, but not on the one that Retrobits posted. And I don't know why that is. I think it might be programmed and encoded differently in some ways. So, don't know. I also made a Microsoft Paint drawing of an example of what a Micro Firmware BIOS Update floppy disk for the one I'm looking for would look like. Maybe that 19 would not be present. Again, serial number I made up. I made this with Microsoft Paint. If anyone has this exact floppy disk, please upload it to archive.org. Or if anyone already has a system, but not the floppy disk, that has this version of the Micro Firmware BIOS present, please do a ROM dump of it. And there's actually an update that I wanted to make, as YouTube user Retrobits actually ran into this issue. The fsh.exe BIOS utility program that the Micronix company for those Micronix motherboards made failed to do a BIOS dump of a Micro Firmware BIOS on those. And I think the reason for that is because these Micro Firmware BIOS updates are coded in some ways that will cause the fsh.exe program to fail. So I will be posting an alternative BIOS dumping utility in the description of my video here. Okay, I don't know if I'm explaining everything correctly. I'm just explaining this as best as I can. With the modification that I've made to the EXE using the hex editor program, I don't know if the hex editor is corrupting the EXE program in any way. Here's the version of the hex editor program I used. Okay, version 1.7.7.0. If any further modifications need to be made, I don't know what modifications need to be made, if any. Whether there's still some missing BIOS data, or what. Another thing I want to point out is that there were several Micro Firmware BIOS updates out there that Micro Firmware made back in the day. And with all the update-only versions out there, I want to point out that the motherboards that they were made for, I don't know for sure, but they might not all have a jumper for a BIOS recovery mode, like mine does, as I showed off in my video earlier. So if there's any system boards that don't, and there's the risk of corrupting the BIOS, don't try what I did, because it's not worth the risk. Unless there's a recovery jumper to where the BIOS can be recovered, which I'm certain that there should be, since I'm certain all of those Micro Firmware BIOS updates do have the ability to make a recovery disk with the proprietary format. But in case there's any motherboards that don't have that option to recover the BIOS in that way, don't do it, it's not worth the risk. But in conclusion, this is my Microsoft Paint drawing of the update disk I made. I don't know if I did the best of job on creating this, because I just followed along to the scanner image that Retrobits had posted. And then this monitor image that I had created. I just followed along and looked at the exe of the non-update only version. So I'm pretty sure that with my system, if I had the Micro Firmware BIOS update that I'm looking for, that it would look just like this. Okay, one more thing that I do want to mention is that on the retro web here, somebody actually in November of 2025, a month ago that I'm making this video, uploaded another BIOS from Micro Research that might be for this motherboard, but it's not quite the right one. I tried it, and I don't want to say that it was laggy. I don't think that it was. However, because there's 2 IDE channels here, I could have 4 hard drives. Well, this Micro Research BIOS only gave me the option to put in settings for 2 hard drives, and it did not give me the option to auto-detect, nor does it give me the option to do a user-defined. So that's actually a bit of an issue. It seemed to work, but it didn't quite work. Alright, overall and in conclusion, this video was really complicated to make. Little overwhelmed right now, nothing to do with you guys in any way. But I would like to point out that if anyone out there, an alternative to a hex editor program, maybe a newer version that I don't have to pay for, of course, or if anyone in general has any ideas in general of any modifications, further modifications that I could make the right way to where the system, my particular Gateway 2000 system, will not result in a black screen after doing the BIOS update, and I can actually use the Micro Firmware BIOS, please let me know. Overall, I want to say thank you to everyone for watching my video. Thank you to YouTube user RetroBits for giving me special permission to show off a screenshot from your video and your Gateway 2000 system. And thank you for the CPU upgrade demonstration video. So, in conclusion, this is PB70CD OEM signing off. Take care. Over and out.